Greetings to all. Welcome to the second episode of the podcast Africa in Crisis. Today, we look at South Africa to pose the question whether that country is in meltdown. The former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, recently warned the ANC faithful that the country faced real danger of its own Arab Spring if, inter alia, it failed to fight poverty, inequality, corruption, and lawlessness. Mbeki reminded the nation of uprisings in 2010-11 in several Arab countries which saw governments toppled in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, and Yemen. In 1994, apartheid gave way to a non-racial democracy led by Nelson Mandela. The optimism generated by the largely peaceful transfer of power through an inclusive election was palpable and infectious. The ANC took over a country with the biggest, most diversified, and technologically advanced economy in Africa. Unencumbered by apartheid, sanctions, and isolation, and enjoying widespread goodwill from the international community, there was every reason to believe South Africa would not only prosper, but be a force for good in many ways on the continent. Those years now seem a distant memory. Optimism has been supplanted by a foreboding that tough times lie ahead. There is a strong sense that South Africa is on a slippery slope to potential disaster. The economy is sluggish and likely headed for a prolonged recession. With stronger major economies around the world on the brink of recession, that fate seems a certainty for South Africa. As a result of self-inflicted wounds, state-owned enterprises, a key sector in South Africa's economic growth for decades, are now on their knees. The power utility Eskom, National Airlines South African Airways, arms manufacturer Denel, passenger rail carrier Prasa, to name a few, were destroyed by corruption and mismanagement. All is revealed in voluminous reports by the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into Allegations of State Capture, chaired by now Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. Equally damaging is the state of municipalities in rural and urban areas throughout the country. The majority of municipalities are bankrupt and unable to adequately provide services. Businesses and households, which are all located in municipalities, are victims of poor service delivery, especially unreliable power and water supplies. Reports by successive Auditor Generals tell the same story of financial malfeasance, ranging from unkept financial records, irregular and wasteful expenditure, to corruption and outright theft. Levels of unemployment continue to rise. While the narrow definition of unemployment puts the rate at 36.6%. An alarming figure is that of a staggering 64% unemployment rate among young people between the ages of 16 and 24. The number of people who receive social grants is 3 times more than those in formal employment. While with load shedding, water shortages, and crumbling municipalities, it is unrealistic to expect economic growth and the jobs that accrue from it. The triple evils of unemployment, poverty, and inequality will not be conquered without economic growth and the financial probity of politicians and officials at all 3 tiers of government. After a promising start in the first years of democracy, where did it all go wrong? Seduced by power and privilege, the ANC government lost its way. The focus shifted from selfless service to the nation to securing power in the party as a launching pad for positions in government. There are those who argue that the ANC lost its innocence when Cabinet decided in 1999 to purchase defense assets for the Navy and Air Force, the infamous arms deal. Like most arms deals, corruption was inevitable. Justice Zondo's commission catalogues how corruption took root in government departments and state-owned enterprises with the collusion of unscrupulous elements in the private sector. This corruption did more than just damage the economy. It broke the people's trust in government. It impoverished millions, dashing any hopes of a better life for all. It has damaged the national psyche and lacerated the moral fabric of society. Violent crime has spiraled with an environment of lawlessness, instilling fear in individuals, families, and communities. A state's main contribution to economic growth is to build infrastructure, efficiently manage state-owned enterprises which supply services too essential to be entrusted to a profit-driven private sector, and develop human capital through investment in education, health, housing, and security. Once a state fails to execute these mandates, it ceases to be, to use ANC terminology, a capable state. The challenge for South Africa is for the state to rebuild that capability. When nations face existential threats, people rise above their differences to confront the danger. South Africa does not face any existential threat like foreign military aggression. But if South Africans aspire to be a prosperous, stable, equitable, and peaceful nation, what is happening now is an existential threat to that aspiration. This calls for South Africans to be united by a common purpose to ensure that this very important country has a future that yields material security, safety, and fulfillment for its peoples. There is a misguided belief that elections in 2024 will be the savior. Those who support the ANC believe that the party, renewed, armed with a fresh mandate, can arrest the decline and set the economy on a path to sustained growth. Those in the opposition are confident that they can reduce the ANC's share of the national vote to below the threshold of 50% to enable minority parties form a coalition. Both are wrong. The ANC has governed for 38 years with big majorities in the National Assembly. It requires a huge leap of faith to believe that somehow this time it will get things right. Opposition parties are wrong to think that they can form a viable national coalition government without the ANC. There is only one outcome that is certain in 2024. The ANC will remain the largest single party, whether it is below or above the 50% threshold. South Africa is not a mature democracy which can be governed by a coalition of small minority parties with a wounded and resentful ANC in opposition. A collapse of that government caused by internal friction and external destabilization would be inevitable. Serious thought must be given to the formation of a national unity government. The ANC has a number of young leaders with experience acquired in all tiers of government. The best among them who combine competence with integrity must be brought to the fore and elevated to national office. In opposition ranks, there are many with the competence and integrity to serve the country in national government. There are also South African citizens outside politics who can be included as technocrats. All these talents must be combined to focus on the mission to save South Africa. This is not time for ideological posturing or political gamesmanship. Mr. Mbeki is not a man given to hyperbole. His warning of an Arab Spring must be heeded. It is too ghastly to contemplate what lies ahead for South Africa if it continues on a slippery slope until it lands at the bottom of it. Thank you. Listeners, do you agree that South Africa is in meltdown? If you do, what solutions do you offer? Please post your comments below. Let's have a conversation.